Hello everyone. In this video I will talk about Mercedes EQE and EQS profitability, as well as the profitability of their SUV versions. Besides that, I will touch the BEV profitability of some other legacy automakers like Audi, Volkswagen and Ford. Let us start with Mercedes. On July 27th, Mercedes had an earnings call, Q2 or H1 earnings call, and CFO Harald Wilhelm said, quote, "It's more or less the first quarter of EQA sales, but at this point the EQA margin is at the point of the E-Class margin," end quote. So the E-Class is the ICE version. These are not exactly the same vehicles, and we will talk about that EQE has significantly higher price tags. But this is still a great news from Mercedes, and we have to remember that EQE is in the class of Model S, and EQS is one class above that in terms of size. Regarding the EQS, Harald Wilhelm CFO said, quote, "We saw that the EQS margin is starting to become healthy. Maybe it's not exactly on S-Class level, but it's not too far from it," end quote. So EQS margins are not so good as the EQA margins, maybe because the scale of the EQS production is not as big as the scale of EQA production. There are three aspects of this news which I think make it an even better news. The first aspect is that I think that they are still in the ramp-up phase for the EQE. The first indication for this is that they are saying that the EQS margin is starting to become healthy. And for me, this means that they are still ramping the EQS production up. And if that is true, then they definitely still ramping up the EQE production, because the EQE production has started months later than the EQS production. The second indication is that they are using the wording that it's more or less the first quarter of EQE sales, which also means to me that they are still in the early ramp-up phase. And finally, the last indication are the sales numbers. This is a car sales base, the EQE sales in Europe in 2022. We can see that from January to March the numbers were really low, and in April they sold 650. We don't have data for May and June, but from this I would also say that they are still in the ramp-up phase. Okay, so we have seen three things which indicate that the EQE production is still in the ramp-up phase, which means that the production numbers will increase further. And why is this important? This is important because the more you can use your capacity, your factory capacity, the higher profit margins you have on the vehicles. This is simply because there are always fixed costs for a factory, and if you produce more vehicles in the factory, that means that this cost is divided by more cars, and for one car the cost goes down as the production ramps up. So this means that the EQE profit margins will very likely increase further from here in the coming quarters. The second important aspect that I want to point out regarding this news is that the EQE is priced above the E-Class. Inside this says that you can buy an E-Class today in Germany from under 50,000 euros, while the EQE starts a little bit above 70,000 euros for the base EQE 350 Plus variant. On one hand, one can say that it is natural that a higher priced model has better profit margins, because this is usually the case in the auto industry. However, I think that there has been so many rumors and bad news about the profitability of the electric vehicles made by traditional automakers that this news is quite a refreshing one, and I also think that it can push both Mercedes and other traditional automakers towards braver transition to electric vehicles. And it is also important to point out that because EQE is priced higher, the nominal profit is higher for the EQE, even though they might have the same profit margin. For this, let us take a look at a simple theoretical example. There are several different types of profits, and there are several different types of profit margins as well, such as gross margin and operating margin. We will take an example here where we are talking about gross margin, and I of course don't know what is the EQE and the E-Class gross margin, but I will assume in this example that it is 25%. It is, I think, usual for Mercedes, maybe it is higher in the E-Class level. So if the EQE is selling for 70,000 euros with a 25% profit margin, then they have a 17,500 euros profit per car. And if the E-Class is selling for 50,000 euros, then with the same profit margin, they have 12,500 euros profits per car. So we can see that there is a 5,000 euros profit difference. And if Mercedes is buying the battery pack from a supplier, or at least have battery cells, then it's very likely that the capex and the operating cost of the production is very similar. So they can win 5,000 euros profit per vehicle if they transition towards the EQE. So I think this is another good news, and this can also encourage Mercedes and other traditional automakers to transition more quickly towards electric vehicles. After the EQE, Mercedes is planning to launch the EQS SUV version and the EQE SUV version. Mercedes has already started the production of the EQS SUV in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, United States. And because people these days love SUVs much more than sedans, it is likely that both the profitability and the sales numbers of the SUV versions will be better than for the sedan version. We have seen the same with Model 3 and Model Y. People love Model 3, but they love Model Y even more. And to be honest, the EQS doesn't really look great in my opinion, and as I heard, I am not alone with this opinion. However, the SUV version is quite beautiful for me. So I think there is quite a lot of room both in profitability and in sales numbers with the SUV versions. To sum it up, we have found one aspect of this news which makes less exciting, and three aspects which make it more exciting. The one which makes it less exciting is the one that EQE is selling for a higher price, so it is easier for the EQE to have a better profit margin. But at the same time, we have three aspects of this news which make it much more exciting. One is that the EQE is very likely still in the ramp-up phase, so the profit margins will get better. The second is that because EQE has a higher price, that means the nominal profit is greater, even though the two margins are similar currently. And the third one is that the SUV versions are coming, and very likely both profitability and sales numbers will grow for those models. I also think that this category, the EQE, is basically in the category of Model S, and the EQS is a little bit above that. So I think that this category is completely ready for full electrification in the developed markets. There are countries in which the charging infrastructure is not adequate yet. So in those countries, I think the market is not ready yet, but in developed countries, I think they are completely ready. I think the market is completely ready for full electrification in this segment. There is no demand issue here whatsoever. There is no profitability issue. It is only a matter of production capacity now. Mercedes was not the only one who talked about their EV profitability in the last year or so. In last October, Audi CEO Markus Duesmann said, "The point where we earn as much money with electric cars as with combustion engine cars is now or next year, 2023. They are very even now, the prices." Okay, so this is a confusing statement, but what he wants to say basically is that they already earn as much money with electric cars as with ICE cars. Or if this is not true, then they will do it by 2023. It is unclear whether he means profit margins or whether he means nominal profit. But this is anyway a good positive statement. However, this has happened before the big material cost increase. The huge lithium price increase happened mostly after October last year. But after this statement, the lithium prices went up significantly after last October. And also the nickel prices went up in March this year due to the Ukraine crisis. And also the prices of other battery materials went up as well. And after prices went up, Ford CFO said that, quote, "We actually had a positive bottom line profit when we launched the Mach-E, but commodity cost has wiped it out, so from a bottom line standpoint," unquote. This is not a good news for Ford, but he says that it is on the bottom line, which is good because that is the smallest profit margin among the profit margins. So this means that they still have gross profit and operating profit on the car. And hopefully these material prices will get better in time. One of the reasons for such low Mach-E profitability is that Ford underestimated the demand, and so they have set a low wholesale price for the cars. We do not know what is the wholesale price since it is not a public data, but very likely it is connected to MSRP. However, because the good demand, dealers sold the cars with a decent markup. This way the profit landed at the dealers instead of Ford. The easiest remedy for this is to simply raise the wholesale price and with that the MSRP of the cars. And this is exactly what they did. For example, in April 2022 they have raised the prices in the UK, and then in August 2022 they have raised the prices in the US when they have reopened the previously closed order books. I have gathered the details of these price changes in this spreadsheet. There will be a link in the description below to this spreadsheet as well, among the other sources. The model names are mostly different in the two countries. Only the Mach-E GT name is the same, but the naming is not really important right now for us. You can see the new prices after the raise in the yellow columns, the price difference in the blue columns, and I have also calculated the ratio of these two in percentages. For example, 13% here means that the difference is 13% of the new price. The numbers in the green columns indicate approximately the profit margin increase for these models. Note that this can only be used as a ballpark approximation of the profit margin increase, just to have some ideas about how much the price increase helped for the profit margin. In order to calculate the real profit margin increase, we would need much more data and more complicated calculations. So in the green columns we can see numbers between 1% and 14%. But if the average profit margin increase was 7%, for example for Ford, that is already a noticeable number. Just for a quick comparison, Tesla's operating margin was 14.6% in Q2 2022. The situation seems to be much better at Volkswagen. Even after the material prices went up, Volkswagen CEO Herbert Diess said that, quote, "We expect that the e-mobility business will be as profitable as the combustion engine business earlier than planned," unquote. He said this on May 12th. Earlier, Volkswagen expected to match its BEV profit margins with ICE profit margins in 2 to 3 years. I couldn't find when did they say this, but probably 2021 is a reasonable assumption. So this means that they will have profit margin parity in 2023, 2024. However, now they say that it will happen even earlier, so it can be in 2023 already. So this is a good news for Volkswagen, even after the material prices went up. However, it is also possible that they have simply covered themselves for material price changes using financial instruments. Okay, to sum it up, what I can say is that I think that those automakers which have a reasonable BEV strategy will reach BEV profitability parity with ICE profitability in the coming 1 to 3 years. Okay everyone, we have arrived to the end of our video. If this video was enjoyable and or useful to you, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.